As you know, we do organize, and I think it started now 2 years ago, this Thrive Speaker Series. They are very important because it's a unique opportunity for us to discuss and to reflect together about important topics related to your children, to our students' education. But tonight it's a unique opportunity because we won't be talking, even if we may mention it, about the context around us, around the school, what's going on in the world of education, but we'll most focus on what's going on at TFS. We'll really take here the opportunity to address and to reflect about one of the three priorities of our current strategic plan for TFS, which is thriving at TFS and beyond. And we'll have the opportunity to reflect together about the meaning of this priority. So without further ado, because I think it's more interesting to listen to our panelists than myself, I would like to introduce first my colleague Kim English. Kim English is the Director of University Admissions, and she will get into more details about the topic of this evening, and also she will have the opportunity to introduce our wonderful panelists.
We've organized this event to address some of the common concerns and perceptions that we hear from TFS parents, with the goal of really providing some clarity and speaking openly about the TFS experience. We know that everyone wants the best for their child, and we do too. At times, we hear questions about various aspects of the program. Some parents say, TFS isn't a school for serious athletes, or French is too hard if you're not already strong in languages. Others worry that English skills will suffer in a bilingual program, or the IB diploma is only for top students. So to best address these misconceptions, we've decided to turn the microphone over to the real experts, our current students, an alumnus, and a parent. So without further ado, I'd like to ask tonight's panel to briefly introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves and their background, and we're going to start with Aanya.
I came to TFS in junior kindergarten, but I actually left in grade 5. So I was doing grade 6 and grade 7 at another school, and then I came back and I've been here since level 1. So some of my interests are artistic swimming. So I'm a competitive artistic swimmer outside of school at the provincial level. So it's something I really enjoy doing. And I also have a very big passion for arts and music. So I sing, I songwrite, and I actually have a few songs out on Spotify and Apple Music. So that's something that, I've really been doing the past couple years and really been enjoying doing that. So yeah.
Thanks, Aanya. Go ahead, Taia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taia, and I'm a level 4 student as well. I came to TFS in grade 7, and I've really enjoyed my time here so far. I've been on numerous sports teams, and currently I'm a peer mentor. Outside of school, I play a high level of hockey. I play for the Mississauga Junior Hurricanes, and most recently I was selected to play for Team Ontario and go to nationals that were held in New Brunswick. And I'm also really excited because I recently committed to Cornell to play D1 hockey and also to continue my studies there.
Thank you. Yeah, why not clap?
Hello, everyone. My name is Rohan. I'm a level 5 student, so grade 12, about to graduate this year. On top of school, I have a lot of different extracurriculars, mainly sports. I used to play hockey, all three, so hockey, soccer, and basketball until grade 10, and then I started focusing on mainly basketball and soccer. I'm also trying to get recruited to the US to play basketball as well. I've also founded a not-for-profit back in 2023 to support children in India financially for school. And I'm hoping to go into medicine in the future. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm a graduate of the class of 2016 here at TFS. So it's been 8 years, hard to believe. I started in PK and went all the way to level 5. So I did 14 or 15 years here at the school. While I was here, I was a 3-term athlete. I was president of the Spanish club, and I was also the student house leader for Campbell House, which I hope is still around and winning.
It is.
And after that, upon graduating, I went to Queen's Commerce. I was there for 4 years, had the opportunity to do an exchange program in France while I was there as well. So I studied for 4 months in Paris at Essex Business School. And I now work here in Toronto as a bilingual corporate development analyst. And I've been in the workforce for 4 years.
Great, thank you.
My name is Rosa Maria Barbara, and I'm a current parent at the school. I am also the president of the Parents Association, for those of you who haven't seen my photo. I have only one child left at the school, and she's in level 3. I have 2 graduates. My daughter Sophia graduated in 2022, and my son Luca graduated in 2024. Sophia is currently in the business management program at Western, and Luca is in McGill Commerce program.
Great.
So that's just...
So one of the things I want to talk about, or that, we all agree truly sets TFS apart, is our bilingual program. In fact, as many of you know, we were actually Canada's first French immersion school. Although we have families who are deeply committed to the French language and bilingualism and that added value of the language, we also hear from some families who question whether French might be too challenging, and they wonder if French is worth pursuing at the senior school. Some even wonder if their child would get higher grades at an English language school. So I know that perhaps some of you had some of those very thoughts at some point in time. It does take a bit of effort to study in 2 languages. So let's explore what their experience with French has been like. Aanya, we'll start with you. You left TFS after grade 5, right? And for maybe some of these similar reasons, right? Could you share why you decided to change schools and what ultimately brought you back?
Yeah, so I left TFS after the end of grade 5 because it seemed like a kind of a transition period from grade 5 to 6. At the time, I honestly did not really see the value in doing kind of courses like science and math and French just because I felt that it was a bit redundant and it just wasn't like super necessary. But it wasn't really until I kind of left that I started to appreciate the school for a lot of things, and I think bilingualism was definitely one of them. I think another thing that kind of comes with that is diversity, and I think in relation to a lot of other schools, TFS is a very diverse community, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that students that are, due to the fact that it's a bilingual school. And I also kind of found that as you get older, you start to realize more the value of bilingualism when you interact with different people and you realize that it brings you a lot of perspective and a lot of different perspective that people who maybe learn in only one language wouldn't necessarily have. And so I think after kind of coming back, TFS in general from a young age like teaches students the value of bilingualism, but I think often it's not until you're older that you really start to appreciate that. And so I think ultimately what brought me back was just appreciating that. And when I did come back, the first 3 to 6 months were definitely very challenging, and I had to work very hard to kind of catch up, just because even though I had a solid base of French from before I left, it was still a bit of a challenge to just get back to that level, just because it was such a high level and such a rigorous level. But within like 3 months, it was kind of back to normal, and now I'm definitely very happy to be back and happy to be learning in French, because I think it's just made me a better-rounded individual. Yeah.
Well, we're really happy you're back, so thank you for that. Rosa Maria, you bring a really unique perspective, as you were once advised, actually, that a bilingual program might not be the right fit for one of your children back in grade 4. So could you share that experience with us, and like, how did it all turn out?
So in grade 4, our eldest daughter, Sophia, was falling behind in math, English, French. So we were pulled over by the school and told that, she needs to maybe look at other options or get extra help. So we had an assessment done, and we were told in our assessment that her brain is not programmed to function in 2 languages, and that we should consider an all-English school. As a family, we came to TFS when Sophia started in 2010 in grade 1, and we were committed to the school. We were committed to a bilingual education. We were committed to a co-ed school. We were committed to IB and the rigorous education that the kids get out of the school. So obviously we didn't want to pull our daughter out, and our daughter didn't want to leave. So she was one of the first students to go through the learning forum at the junior school when she was in grade 4. And they supported her a lot through all of her years from grade 4 on with math, English, and sciences. She needed a lot of support, and we also provided her with tutoring at home and tried to support her at home. I'm not going to say that she did not struggle. She did. She had to work really hard and organize herself and dedicate a lot of time to studying. And in the end, she was able to graduate with a 90 plus average. She got the Tory Award, she got her brevet, and she's she got accepted to many universities, and she's at Western now in her 3rd year, and she's doing great. So we're happy we decided to stay. So,
Alex, you also considered leaving TFS at one point. So could you tell us a little bit more about that and what made you decide to stay?
My marks were starting to drop a bit, and I was getting frustrated. I was a very competitive skier for a few years, so that was taking up a lot of my time. And I was also at the same time playing AA hockey in the Greater Toronto Hockey League, which is a big time commitment as well. So I was just doing a lot of stuff, and it was tough to fit everything into one day. So I looked at other options. I think it was natural as a teenager to kind of blame my environment instead of necessarily like what I was doing on why my marks were slipping. I say that now.
Exactly.
So yeah, I interviewed. I was interested in Crescent and UCC. I went through the process. I did my SSATs. I got an offer from one of the schools. I won't say which one. And I had a decision to make. My parents said, "It's up to you. What do you want to do?" And I ultimately decided. I did a lot of reflecting, and I think the grass always seemed greener on the other side. But I wasn't ready to leave TFS. This was home, and I think first and foremost for me, coming from French-Canadian background, I wasn't ready to give up my French because I knew that it was gonna take a hit, and I'm glad I didn't, because it's a long-term game developing that French, and maybe I didn't use it that much for 4 years at university, but as I said, I'm a bilingual corporate development analyst now, and I use it every day at work, and it's gotten me multiple jobs in the last 4 years that maybe I wouldn't have got otherwise, so I'm glad I stayed.
Thank you. And I think Alex is pointing out like a really important part of the natural developmental process of adolescence, wanting to be independent. And it's okay to explore those other options and then come back to the decision yourself. I think a number of our students go through that, and that makes sense. If they've been at school since they were really, really young, they kind of maybe think it might be better elsewhere. And it sounds like you approached that whole experience in a really healthy manner, and your parents gave you a lot of flexibility with that. So since your time at TFS, I know you didn't really use your French except maybe when you were in France, so maybe you could talk about that. But what advantages has your bilingual education provided you?
Obviously, doing 4 months in Paris on exchange and being able to speak French there I had a much different experience than other people because I was able to integrate myself in the culture in the city a lot more than maybe my other classmates were. And then, the biggest moment where my bilingualism, and it was actually also like I studied Spanish when I was at TFS, was when I was applying for jobs during my 3rd year. It's just so competitive to get a good internship now coming out of business school. You have so many students applying for so few positions. So I ultimately was able to land an internship at Deloitte in their consulting team after my 3rd year of university. And on my first day on the job, I asked the partner that hired me what made my resume stand out, like why did you hire me? And he said, we received 500 applications for 6 internship positions. And the reason we picked your resume out of the pile was because you spoke English, French, and Spanish. And so that was a huge advantage because it got me in the door. And I used the French on the job as well, but like the biggest advantage was, being able to differentiate myself from other students. And then now, obviously, I work as a bilingual corporate development analyst, so I've been able to, get other jobs through French as well, and I use it every day, and I also get paid more for being bilingual. So considering
That's always a bonus.
so considering the rent prices in Toronto these days, that's a nice thing to have.
That's great. Okay, Taia, you have had a slightly different perspective since you chose to come to TFS in grade 7 from a French immersion school. Can you share with us a little bit about why you wanted to continue your education in French?
Yeah. So coming from a French immersion school, I really enjoyed doing my studies in French, and I knew I wanted to continue that once I got to high school, so TFS seemed like a great option. And I think, as we can see with Alex's case, I recognize that because Canada is a bilingual country, being bilingual opens so many doors and so many possibilities in the job market. And I think being here at TFS, you can also see how many opportunities are created for your post-secondary school education. I know so many people who have been able to study in places like Paris and Madrid because they're able to speak so proficiently in French and also have that English as well. I think also something special about TFS is we not only get to continue our studies in French, but we also get to be a part of a culture that is francophone because so many of our teachers speak French as their first language, and that's just integrated as part of our community here.
Great, thank you. Rohan, do you have anything you'd like to add? I know a lot has been said, so no pressure here.
Yeah, so everyone gave amazing points about how French is really important, especially outside of TFS and when you graduate. Something I actually experienced pretty recently was during my November break when I went on a cruise, and so it being like it was me and my sister, and so when your parents would either go to the casino or go to the restaurant, you would find something to do. And so I went to the basketball courts, and I'd play mini golf, and I'd see a group of people that were speaking French, and I think a big reason on why I connected with them so well was because I spoke French as well. And I'm really not the type of person to hear someone speak French and not answer or join the conversation. And so I would join the conversation, and I guess it showed me how French not only opens things up for jobs and in different education systems, but also in your social life as well, and how it opens you up to different social circles and just allows you to meet new people. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's hit an island vacation with Rohan. Okay, we are going to move to talk about bilingualism, but now on the English side. Okay, so there's a common misperception that students in a bilingual program will fall behind in their English language schools. I actually hear this a lot. It's like the #1 question at open houses and from parents of younger students. Just to give everybody some context of how English works at TFS, right? In our model, students are fully immersed in French from Jardin de Veille to grade 1. English is introduced formally in grade 2, and then by the time students reach level 3, which is the equivalent of grade 10, they have more flexibility in their language of instruction depending on their course options and who is teaching. So even with all this English exposure, especially as students are older, we still hear concerns that students might struggle with their English. So Rohan, let's go back to you this time. You are considering highly selective universities in Canada and the US. Like, how prepared do you feel for English language university? Because you're not applying to French universities, you're applying to English only. Yeah.
So I think a very important thing to note is that TFS's English department is very good, and so I learned that because I was doing Ontario English in grade 10, and I would have some friends that went to public schools in Ontario, and there'd be a sort of a comparison that I would do to their English classes and to mine. And I realized as I got to grade 11 and I did the IB English that I was just on a completely different level, and that we were doing things that usually people start in university in high school. And so that not only gave me a step up, but also would help me, I'm hoping, in university when I take English, because I'd be used to those type of assignments and things. I also think it's important to note that we live in Canada, right? We live in Toronto, and a lot of people here mainly speak English. And I know a lot of students here at least have one extracurricular that they do outside of school. And for me, a big thing is research. And so I'm currently doing a research project at Oakville Hospital. And that requires me to not only have to send emails in English, and so my writing skills are practiced there, but also have meetings and have proper conversations and connect with people in English. So I think the biggest thing there is to see that in TFS, sure, French is very important, but outside, your English is also, I guess, trained, and you practice on that as well. So I think that's also something very important. And especially, again, like Alex said, in the workforce, you can speak both English and French, but mainly if you wanted to maybe go to the US, because a lot of students here don't stay in Canada, English is also used a lot in universities in the US and then in Ireland. And so after that, the workplace is used in English. So I think that English skill that you develop outside of TFS and in TFS as well is really important.
Thank you. That's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is for Alex, because actually, like the counselors and the alumni office team, we often hear from alumni that English language skills are actually an area of strength for them when they go to university. So Alex, when you transitioned to university, how did you find the transition overall, and then maybe specifically relate to like English skills?
Yeah, I think the transition in itself to university is a pretty unique experience. You go from living at home with mom and dad for 18 years, and then all of a sudden you're dropped off at Brockington residence at Queen, and it's good luck, son. And that was my experience. So yeah, you kind of learn pretty quickly that mom's not there to tell you to do your homework, and mom's not there to tell you to do your laundry and all that stuff. So yeah, there's of course, and you know, I was adapting. But you know, something I was nervous about coming from TFS, especially having been here for 15 years, was how are my writing skills going to compare to my Queen's Commerce classmates? And I was worried that I'd be behind. And it was actually, like as Rohan was saying, it was actually the opposite. My writing skills, I thought, were, you know, superior to a lot of my classmates. And the way the Queen's Commerce program works is that in your first year, right off the bat, you're put into a group of 4 students, and that's your group for the semester. So you do all your projects with that group, obviously presentations, writing, you know, all sorts of things. And it ended up being that my group unanimously voted that I was the strongest writer in the group, so I had to have the last set of eyes on all of our you know, assignments that we were doing. So I was going through and I was proofreading and I was changing what my classmates had, you know, put together, and it was actually them that asked me to do it and not me kind of like wanting to do it myself necessarily. They kind of identified it themselves. So that was honestly pretty shocking to me. I was really surprised. But yeah, it ended up being a huge area of strength for me, and it continues to be an advantage in the workplace.
Great, thank you. And so Taia, you know, you joined TFS in grade 7, and so compared to our other panelists who were here for a lot longer, you have more experience out in the wider non-French immersion world. And so how did you find the level of English when you came to TFS, and how do you find it now?
Yeah. Well, when I first came to TFS from my French immersion school, I actually found the English a little bit challenging compared to what I had previously done. But I think because it was challenging, it was also more immersive, and there was much more content that we were learning, and we were able to analyze things from poems to works of art to even movies sometimes, and we were able to analyze TV shows, which I found was very interesting. And I think that's true for all the classes we have here at TFS, that all the courses we offer, they go really in depth, and it's always going to be a little bit challenging at first, but it's quite rewarding, and they're definitely going to be interesting. And once you accomplish it, it just feels great.
Definitely, thank you. Rosa Maria, you've had two children who've graduated from TFS, and they're currently in university, English language universities. So how has their experience been? Anything you'd like to add to what's already been said?
So I'd like to reiterate, I guess, what Rohan said about the English department. I do feel that we have a strong English department, especially here at the senior school, which provides great support for the students. Both of my kids are actually, I think they're surprised how well they're doing in university. And, you know, I remember Sophia calling me, you know, in her first month at Western saying, you know, Mom, everyone in my class is like freaking out about a 500-word essay, but I've done so many of those in the last 2 years at IB, at TFS, so it's not a problem. And that's in English, right? So I think that, you know, it all balances out by the time they get to school and to the higher grades, and they have choices, and they're not behind in English. They're actually further ahead, so. That's what, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's like the critical thinking skills and the communication skills that come from the IB diploma program that really feed into that language development. So speaking of the IB diploma program, we're going to kind of move into that area now. As you all know, we're a full IB continuum school, and we've been offering the IB diploma program actually at TFS for more than 30 years. So the DP is how we commonly refer to it. The IB's all about the acronyms, right? So the DP is renowned for its focus on well-roundedness, providing an international perspective, and academic rigor. And so a lot of people ask, but does that mean that only top students can succeed? And I do get worries from parents who feel like their children might not be successful. So I'm going to kind of ask the panel some questions related to that. So Aanya, you're in level 4, which is the beginning of the 2-year diploma program. So it's level 4 and level 5, the final 2 years of high school. And you've been doing the middle years program previously. What has your experience been so far, maybe like level 3 and level 4, in terms of balancing school and activities?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think that's definitely a very valid concern. I'd say I have a lot of passions outside of school. So, for example, as I mentioned before, I do competitive artistic swimming at the provincial level, so that's a bit of a time commitment. And I also just really enjoy writing and music, and so I think in general what I would say is when you have an aspect of your life that's challenging, let's say it's sports, for example. Let's say you're facing a challenge where you have to do something that's very tough from an athletic perspective. When you overcome that challenge in that kind of area of your life, that win and that kind of mental resilience that you build, it translates into your academics and it translates into other areas of your life. And so I think that even though might be difficult to be doing a lot of things outside of school, it actually is helping you become a better student when you're a better athlete, when you're more creative. Also, like writing, for example, I write outside of school. And English, I take HL English Langlit here in level 4. So I really, really do enjoy that course. And I think that having passions and interests outside of school, it all kind of connects you as a person. And so I think, yes, it does require time management, and you do have to kind of learn to prioritize things. But once you find a balance that works for you, and that balance does change kind of in different seasons. Like if you have a really busy academic period, sometimes that takes priority over other things. But in general, I'd say when you find that sort of balance, it's a really great thing, because you have different parts of yourself and parts of your life that all support each other. And I think it's just made me a more resilient and just a better human being able to balance all that.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. Rosa Maria, we've talked about your 2 children who've graduated from the program. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Luca with the IB diploma program?
Luca, so the IB diploma is definitely a rigorous program, and Luca, when he also had an assessment done while we were at TFS, and he suffers from cognitive organizational dysfunction, which means that he's not very good at organizing and planning things out in his mind, so to plan ahead, and he also suffers from anxiety. So prior to, I would say, grade 10, he was, I used to have to come to the school to look for his shoe, to look for his blazer, to look for his iPad, to clean out his locker. And my husband and I used to be here, I don't know, once every 2 weeks doing that. And it was like, what's going to happen? When is this going to change? So, and as a parent, you're worried and you want to help them. And then, something happened and Luca just changed. And he in grade 11 and 12, he's not so much in grade 11, more so in grade 12. He started really focusing on studying and organizing himself and preparing. And when he graduated, he got into all of the universities that he applied to. He had a great, he got his marks from an 84 in grade 11 to a 94 in grade 12. And he worked really hard for that, and we're very proud. And he's now at McGill, and he's doing great. He's excelling there, so I guess he picked it up and found his way, so they all do.
Yeah. It's interesting. We in the guidance department kind of call that a developmental switch that often flips, particularly with young men in that sort of level 3, level 4, level 5. So sometimes parents will come into my office and go, "When's the switch flipping, Kim?" I'm like, "It's coming, it's okay." I don't know, Alex, maybe you can reflect on that. But one concern that we do hear about the diploma program is that it doesn't allow time for anything else. And and as you can hear from Aanya, that isn't necessarily true. But Alex, you went through the program, you're thriving now. What was your experience with school-life balance, and how did that challenge of balance help you later in life?
Yeah, I think my mom had that flipping the switch conversation with Miss Cleaver 5 or 6 times. So sorry about that, Miss Cleaver. Yeah, I would say, what's the word, Miss Cleaver? I was a bit of a late bloomer. So I had little struggles in level 1 and 2, and then started to pick it up more in level 3, 4, and 5. But I was always busy outside of school. Like I was playing, I think when I was in grade 11 and grade 12, I was playing on the school hockey team as well as competitive hockey. So I was playing hockey like 5 or 6 times a week. And then I was also playing, on the school teams in the other semesters. So I was a 3-term athlete, so I was playing on the soccer team as well as the golf team. And I was also part of dance show. I forget all the stuff I did here. And I was the head of the Campbell House, and I was president of the Spanish Club. Okay, so yeah, I mean, all of that was done in my grade 11 and grade 12 year while I was doing the IB diploma, right? So I did a lot of things, and I didn't find it overly stressful. I didn't stay up till 2 a.m. studying. I was always in bed at a reasonable time. I was just trying to be really efficient with my time and try and study smarter, not harder. That was kind of, I knew that I was constrained by the amount of hours I was spending playing sports and doing other activities. I had to find a way to be more efficient with my time. And I think it ended up working out, and I kind of identified what were priorities for me and what were not necessarily priorities for me. And when I was looking at universities, I identified those 3 programs I really wanted to go to. And I said, what are the requirements? What do I need to do to get into those programs? And I really focused on that, and Queen's Commerce was my #1 program. That's where I was dying to go. So I made sure I focused on setting myself up for success for getting into that program, and it ended up working out.
Great, thank you. So Rohan, you're in your final year. You're actively involved in a number of activities inside, outside of school, your charitable foundation that you mentioned before. How do you manage balancing school with your other commitments?
So, I played a lot of sports when I was younger before I even started the foundation. And I usually never struggled with time management as a younger kid because I would be able to just go to class and then listen, and I'd be able to do my homework during lunch when it was only 30 minutes of homework. Oh, I remember the good old days, just 30 minutes of homework. And I think once grade 11 hit, I was completely shocked because I would be going home and I would usually make to-do lists. And on the first day, I think it doubled, and I would usually have 2 or 3 things, and I had 8 things due the next week. And I was looking at this, I was like, okay, this is, am I sure I'm in grade 11? Am I sure I put the right stuff there? So I think it was really important for me at the start of grade 11 to get ahead of this. And so a big thing that I really listened to and used were our guidance counselors, because at the start of grade 11, I realized that the certain HL courses that I took would require more focus. And so there are 8 different doors. I like to say that there were 8 different doors I was able to walk through. So if Miss Cleaver wasn't there, I'd be able to go to Miss English. And if Miss English wasn't there, I'd be able to go to Miss Brinza. And so there's a lot of we had a lot of tools that I know a lot of other students at different schools don't have. And so I was very grateful for that. And they really helped me, I guess, develop these types of time management skills. And the biggest thing that it taught me was to do something enjoyable in your free time. And so that's what I would do with my sports and my foundation. And I recently got injured, so I wasn't able to play my sports, and so I would really focus on that, on the foundation part of things. And so that was what really kept me, I guess, fresh for school, and so I wouldn't get burnt out. On top of that, I think it's really important to I guess, understand that even if it takes extra work to be organized, a lot of the students here, they don't take advantage of the Google Calendar invites or the different types of templates you're given to organize yourself. And so during those first few guidance classes we had, we were really pushed to do that. And so I think that's a really important thing to do, especially in the IB program, that TFS does better than most. So.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Rosa Maria, I want to come back to you. From a parent perspective, how do you believe students handle the balance and ensure they graduate as well-rounded individuals? Not just in terms of your own children, but as PA president and having multiple kids in different grades, you've talked to a lot of other parents. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to the guidance department at the senior school, at junior school. They're all amazing and they really support our kids. So I think it's important to say that, and especially when they're applying to universities as well. So helping them and guiding them through the supplementals and all of that. But that's a little bit off script, so I'm going to go back.
We'll take the love, thank you.
So I think that if they plan it out, and my kids also played basketball and My daughter did competitive skating, and for me, it was so nerve-wracking when they used to go on these basketball games they're missing class, they're leaving school at 1:00 and they're gone, not back till 6:00, and it's right in the middle of like exam time and IB assignments and they have all this stuff going on, and they have to balance that as well. And and like you said earlier, like they're learning from that, and that helps them get the tools for when they go to university. So. I think it's the school prepares them for sure. So
Great.
And they manage, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we're kind of going to move into our last section of questions. I'd like to shine a little light on athletics specifically. So we've heard about athletics a bit from multiple panelists. You might be surprised to learn that we actually have recruited athletes who graduate from TFS every year playing varsity sports in the States and in Canada. They're able to balance the demands of playing and training at a high performance level and also the rigorous academics. So Taia, you've mentioned that you're a junior women's hockey player. You were on Team Ontario. You're going to Cornell. You already know that. That's a huge congrats. Can you tell us a little bit about what the recruitment process was like for you and how you decided on Cornell?
Yeah.
Because she had many offers, let me just say.
I can. Thanks, Miss English. Obviously, I feel very lucky to have committed to Cornell. And in terms of the recruitment process, so for women's hockey, it starts in grade 9. And coaches will come out, they'll come to see some games, sometimes even practices. And then in the summer of grade 10, coaches are allowed to start talking to the athletes they want to recruit, and they're allowed to start giving offers. So that summer was the summer that just passed for me. And as Miss English said, I received offers from scholarship schools as well as different Ivy League schools. And ultimately, I ended up going with Cornell. And going into the process, I knew there was 2 things I really wanted. I really wanted a school that was going to be a great school academically and also have a very competitive hockey program. And for Cornell, that just checked both my boxes. Cornell being an Ivy League school, it has the academic rigor that I wanted, and it's also a top 5 to top 10 rated school in Division I women's hockey every year. And I really felt like TFS had set me up to be able to thrive in an environment like that. I had learned how to balance, and I still am learning, how to balance my hockey and my academics, and I felt that Cornell was the next step and that it really checked those 2 boxes for me.
Great, and it's worth mentioning that, the recruitment process is really different for different sports, and so this is Taia's hockey experience, but it looks different for basketball or swimming or other sports, and so the time frame might be a little bit different if you're thinking about your own child and their sport. So for students like Taia who are high-performance athletes who have extensive training demands, TFS has developed a specialized academic option. So we recently introduced an alternate learning pathway in the level 4 and 5 year that allows students to remain in academically rigorous IB courses, but also offers a bit more flexibility, enabling them to customize their studies so that they can balance the program with these other demands on their time. This option is also available to students with significant health needs or learning challenges and is really explored with families on an individual basis in level 3. So Taia, I know you're a really strong student and you care a lot about your studies, you take your studies seriously. So how have you benefited from having a bit more of a flexible academic program?
Yeah, I feel like I've really benefited from this academic program. My training schedule is quite demanding. I have late night practices, training sessions during the day, and I'll have tournaments over the weekends as well as away games that will be 2, 3, even maybe 4 hours away, where I'm away for most of the weekend. And I'm really grateful for the support that TFS has given me. My teachers, they really want to see me succeed, and they really care about each and every one of us. They want to see me succeed in school and on the ice. And I think the support has just been a really big help to me. They've helped with scheduling, giving me tools and helping me learn new skills, learning skills for time management techniques. And I think because of all that, I was able to succeed in an academically rigorous environment like TFS. And it's also allowed me to stay with some amazing friends and stay with amazing people that I've built so many lifelong friendships with.
And probably it allows you to get more sleep.
Yes, it does.
That's what we care about. All those late nights when we sit and talk about her schedule, I'm like, when are you sleeping? And I think having a few more period 1 spares kind of helps with that. So Taia is a great example of a person who's chosen to really pursue athletics at a high level. You heard from Alex a little bit before about his competitive skiing. We have a lot of students who might choose a different choice, right? That they want to focus more on academics when they get a bit older. So Alex, in level 1, you were missing 3 days a week during the winter because of competitive skiing. Like how, I don't know, but can you tell us more about your decision in high school regarding skiing and like maybe choosing to downscale that?
Yeah. I mean, as a teenager, it was great. You know, I only had to go to school 2 days a week. But yeah, obviously my grades suffered. So I think skiing 5 days a week at the same time as playing hockey in the GTHL was just not sustainable. So that was kind of maybe not the best decision that my family and I made, but we only did it for one winter. So, but the school was very accommodating during that portion of my like educational and athletic career. I got a lot of support from the guidance counselors. I got a lot of support from the teachers, you know, sending me my homework when I was away at my competitions and stuff like that. So I managed to kind of tread water at the school that year, but I mean, I think it's just not sustainable to only go to school 2 days a week, no matter what school you're at, and especially if you're doing the IB program. So I think ultimately I had to make a decision, what was my priority, and I think hockey for me was just a more manageable sport to succeed academically and athletically. Skiing is just so challenging because you're driving to Collingwood, you know, twice a week, and it's just, you're in the car forever. So yeah, the whole time I had to develop pretty good time management skills, and I think that that's something that I like still carry with me today. But yeah, going to school 2 days a week, I don't recommend it.
Great. So before we wrap up, I just want to remind you all that the panel is going to be taking questions shortly. So now's a good time to, you know, start thinking about what you might want to ask. My final question is actually to ask each panelist to briefly reflect on how TFS is right for them, or your family in the case of Rosa Maria, or was, and what the benefits were for Alex. We're just going to go down the table in order, and why don't we start with Aanya?
Okay, so I think TFS is right for me because I think it just allows you to be so many different people. I think that's like the best way I could describe it, is like I'm an athlete, I'm an artist, I'm a student, I like learning as well. And so I think like just being able to, whether it's through clubs, like being able to just try things, either realize you're good at them and keep going, realize you're not very good at them and still keep going, or realize you don't like them and stop. I think it's just it's kind of a freedom that can only be found when you have a community that's supportive and that wants you to succeed and wants you to kind of explore all these things. And I think that by the end of when I graduate in like 2-ish years, I think I'll definitely just have a lot of things that I've like tried and a lot of things that I've been able to do just because of the community and because of TFS. I think is really unique in that way. So yeah, that's why I think it's right for me.
Thanks, Aanya. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think for me, as Aanya was saying, I think just the amount of opportunities that are here at TFS, there's always something that you can pursue, whether that be if you're a little bit interested in doing some community service and helping out some of the younger students in younger levels, which I was able to do this year. Even with my busy schedule, I was able to be a peer mentor, which I've really appreciated. And I think being at TFS, I've really learned the importance of managing my time efficiently, and I've learned how to be a successful athlete and student at TFS, and I think that wouldn't have been possible without the support from all the teachers. And I think I've also made some lifelong friends here at TFS, and it's really set me up to succeed at the college level and succeed in an academically rigorous environment and playing my sport at the same time.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So in my last year, I've been doing a little extra research on universities, and so I really think the biggest thing about TFS is that you really stand out, because especially when you're applying to the U.S. like me, the biggest thing you want to do is to, when someone picks up your resume or someone picks up your transcript, it's different. It's different from everyone else that applied. I think the reason why TFS was right for me is because that's what helped me get through, or hopefully will help me get through the door, because TFS is one of the only schools that has a French IB program, and so our bilingual skills are number one going to help us in the workforces outside of university, but also in university as well. And so I think because TFS is what makes me different from all the other applicants, I think that's why it's really right for me and right for a lot of students that are applying to the U.S. and even in Canada.
Thank you. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a huge advantage. I've been able to differentiate myself, right? Like, I'm different than my colleagues because I speak French. I'm different than my friends in Toronto because I speak French. Like, I have a different perspective, and it's been a huge, as I said, advantage for me, and it's gotten me multiple jobs, and I use it every day. I use my French every day at work. And my position in the company is important because I'm the only one on my team that can do deals in Quebec. Like, it makes me more important, and it's a huge differentiating factor for me. And it will, I think, be like that for the rest of my career. So I just, it's been great.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I agree with all of those points for sure. And just to add to that, I think that TFS, like they said, is really a school that stands out amongst other schools, and the rigorous program that the kids go through over the years really helps them when they get into university and to carry that on in their in the future years. And so all that studying and organizing kind of pays off once you're in university. And it's a co-ed school, and these kids are lucky. They start off, some of them start off as early as grade, the age of 2. My youngest started in Jardin, and that was 2. And when she graduates, she'll have had, a group of friends that she's basically known her whole life. And it's this sense of community that I think is also authentic to our school. And so I think that's also something to say that's wonderful about our school. Sorry. So,
It's so true. Just recently, I was chatting with an alum who was excited to share that 20 alum from TFS flew to Greece for so-and-so's wedding, and they had all these great pictures. And these are people who graduated like over 10 years ago. Alex, were you part of that wedding party?
I wasn't part of it. No, there's the year above me.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was, I forget whose wedding. Was it Bardia's wedding?
No, I think it was Michael Deliakis.
Okay,
Yeah. So that sense of family and community, I agree. I think it's something that we hear from our alum all the time. Well, that was a really nice way to wrap up the panel. Before we take questions, just quickly join me in thanking the panel for their wonderful comments tonight. They were amazing. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes for questions. Susan Markle is standing at the back. She has a microphone. So raise your hand if you have any questions that you would like to ask the panel. And I'll repeat the question and direct it to the right person too. Go ahead.
Thank you for today.
Yep.
Oh, all right. Thank you for today. I am curious. So I'm hearing from the students and ex-students, alumni, about what support you needed to have what you have. And I'm just curious, as a parent of a younger child, what support have you had outside of TFS or outside of amazing guidance counselors and teachers and learning about time management? What else has helped you be where you are and get to where you are?
So can I just ask you a clarifying question? Do you mean other community supports, or do you just mean in general?
Anything. So
okay.
What I'm understanding is TFS has been time management.
Sure.
I'm hearing about learning different skills and having a community, being able to be more open to learning new things. But what outside of that? family,
Okay.
communities, all
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Is there someone who feels like they're drawn to answering that question? So what are the other things that have sort of helped you be who you are, so to speak? Go ahead, Anya. Yeah.
I think my family, specifically my parents, have been like really amazing. I'd say like definitely like a huge support system for whether it's like academics or other things outside of school. And I think for me that's just been like the number one thing, like really, really important.
Okay. Rohan, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was also going to say, like, a lot of the teachers here ask you to do things outside of school. So for me, a lot of the teachers here, especially the coaches for our school team, was saying you should try outside of school sports. And so a big thing that I found helpful were my coaches, because a lot of the time management skills and a lot of that independence that I've developed are because of my coaches. Because not only would you get home, but you'd get certain assignments from your coaches to do this type of exercise, or look at the different plays, or look at the different teams, like play styles, stuff like that. So I think outside of school, the teachers are when they're trying to promote things outside of school or tell you to do things outside of your comfort zone, I think that's like those coaches or those mentors that you develop along the way are really important as well.
Great. Other questions? There's some, oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So time management. So I think that question is for you, actually. So you had 3 kids, 3 different personalities, and everybody's busy with sports and social activities and school. Without being that helicopter parent and give them the schedule of this is how you manage your time, how did you let them fail and learn, but at the same time not be scared of, if I'm letting go, am I not really teaching them how to? That's I know it's
This is like the quintessential parenting question.
I know, exactly. Sometimes
Rosa Maria, what's the secret sauce?
Exactly. Because I heard about that click. I can't wait until
It will happen. That I can tell you for sure. It will happen. The click will happen. I mean, yes, you have to be on top of them, and obviously it's a balance because, teenagers and parents. And so one thing that, just to off of your first question, so our family, we always have a tutor outside of school once a week for all the kids. We've always had that for math and French help. So, and I found that helpful. So, so that was one thing. But so I guess, you have to be on top of them. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's a constant reminder, a constant bickering, but it's also a relationship with you and your child and the school, right? So you can advocate for your child. And in many cases, the school has supported me or our family by maybe sometimes, Sherry McCarter used to put sticky notes on all my kids' lockers. And oh my God, Mom, I can't go to see Sherry McCarter again. She put a sticky note on my locker. But those sticky notes were like the best thing because, it helped them be organized and, do what they're supposed to do, go to meetings that they don't want to go to, which eventually they were able to do that on their own and didn't need someone to do it for them. So, but yes, there will be a switch for the boys. For the girls, it was a little different. My girls are different than my son. They're all different, but I feel like with the girls, they're a little bit more organized and they can plan ahead. And sorry, guys, I don't know, maybe you're not, I'm just speaking for my family. The girls seem to be a little bit more organized and the plan ahead. My son is more like leave things to the last minute and trying to crunch everything in the night before. But now he's telling me that he's needs the whole week to study for a test, and he's in the library for like 9 hours a day. So, it's a switch and it'll click. So I don't know.
No, I think that's a great response. And yeah. I think one of the things that you said that's really important is this idea of like a partnership, right, with the school. And parents are really well supported in all the branches of the school. I can just speak specifically about the senior school because that's where I work and that's my area. But we understand adolescence. We understand that pushing away sometimes, right? There's moments when there's the season of parents and kids getting on quite well. And then there's also moments where there's a season of like, butting heads, and maybe having that third voice of, you know, a guidance counselor or someone at the school to kind of come in and help the students work with someone else, not their parent, on some of these skills can be really good skill builders and can actually support parents through that process, which can feel like a bit of an emotional roller coaster, says a recovering mom of teenagers. Other questions? I saw a hand over here before. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. So I think this is just an open question for all the panelists. I'm assuming that everyone has known someone who has left TFS and maybe hasn't come back like Aanya did. I'm curious, when you speak to them or when you hear about why they left, can you share your own experiences as to what you've heard about and what drove them to leave?
Yeah, I mean, that's always hard because it's a little bit of hearsay, but does anybody want to kind of share, or can you think of someone that you might want to articulate a story about without naming names or anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a few friends who came to the school later. So, later is definitely relative, but they came from a fully English school, so not French immersion, in grade 4 or 5-ish, and they left like a few years after that because I think they just found that it was a bit difficult to catch up to the level that like other people were at, which I think makes sense because obviously your brain is a lot more, it's able to learn language easier when you're younger. And I also think a lot of students come later, but they come having some background of French. So I think it was just coming from like zero French later, and that was kind of the reason it was a bit harder to adjust.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my sister actually came to TFS when she was younger as well. My younger sister, we adopted her from India when she was around 3 years old, and so she only knew Hindi. And I was going to TFS at the time, and so my parents wanted to put her in the same school as me because we would take the bus together, and, you know, being the older brother, you have to protect the sister, you know. and so she would go to the Petite École, and then they realized that the teachers and my parents realized that her learning English and French at the same time wasn't really an issue, but that she really needed extra help. And so TFS was very quick to go, yeah, we can give her like lessons, English lessons on top of French lessons as well. And so that really got her through till the junior school. And so similarly to your kids, that she got tested and realized that she had a learning disability. And even then, like, you'd assume that once you learn that you'd realize that you'd have to go to a public school or school with a less rigorous course. But TFS was very open, and they said that they had multiple tools and resources to actually help her. And so she went to TFS until grade 6 or 7, until she had to go to a public school near my home, because number one, it was easier to transfer because I live in Richmond Hill, and so it's a pretty far drive. So early wake up times, especially for the parents, and it was just easier that way. But she still keeps her French, especially in that public school. And not a single time have I heard that maybe she has issues with math or geography or social sciences, but I've never ever heard her say, "Oh, I'm struggling with French." That is the one thing that I've never heard. But yeah, that's sort of like my experiences with that.
Great. Maybe we have time for 2 more questions, so feel free. So we've got a couple hands over here, Susan, one at the front, and yeah.
I actually had 2 questions, but I'll just pick one. I guess just for everyone that's going through the curriculum or that's, you know, been through it, what is it like when you were in grade 11 and 12, especially when you were going through the IB curriculum? And from what I know, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a wide range of subjects you have to take. And what was your feelings when you had to do something that you didn't like, but was part of the curriculum? Were you feeling that you were wasting your time? Were you feeling, oh, I could dedicate my time much better on a subject that I like and, you know, am more interested in? And your feelings and thoughts on that.
So just to clarify, so we're talking about the diploma years, and so one of the requirements of the IB diploma program is to take subjects different subjects in different academic areas. I think that's sort of what you're alluding to. And some are at the higher level and some are at the standard level. So it's possible if, like, you know, science isn't the thing for a person, that they would still have to take science, or so that's kind of, I think, where this question's coming from. Would any of you like to comment on that sort of breadth of courses, and maybe like having one that isn't really your thing, and how does that feel?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I think that's going to happen no matter what school you're in as well, right? Like, I knew when I was going into grade 11 that I wanted to go to business school, so I was really excited to take higher level econ, economics here at TFS, but I also had to take a science, even though I knew that in business school I probably wasn't going to use that science, and I ended up taking chemistry. And I think, like, yeah, you might not be that interested in the subject, especially when you're a 16 or 17-year-old. You're like, oh, I don't care about chemistry. Why do I have to study it? But it's important. It's important for your development. Like, you're not just going to start, you know, going to business school in grade 11, right? Like, you still need to develop that science education as well as that English education and that French education. So I think it's really important, like, coming out of high school, to be a well-rounded individual and have got a good, well-rounded education. And then when you go to university is when you start to specialize.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to add? Go ahead, Taia. Yep.
Yeah, I think, as Alex was saying, it really gives you an opportunity to be a well-rounded student. And even if you don't like a certain science, like, for example, I took physics in grade 10, which wasn't my favorite, I still had many other sciences that I could choose from. And there's just so many options, like, for example, chemistry, biology, ESS. I even know this year there was a kinesiology program. So if there's one subject in particular that you might not like, there's many different options that you could choose from that can still fill these requirements.
Does anyone else? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Rohan.
I was just gonna say something quick, but yeah, like, especially when I went in grade 11, I wasn't very good at the languages, so especially French and English. I was more of a science type of guy because, number one, I knew I wanted to go to med school, so sciences were important. But I knew that my writing wasn't as strong as it could be. But like Taia said, you can choose different types of languages. So there's literature and language, and there's also literature. And so I know a lot of people that enjoyed poetry went into literature. And me personally, I enjoy analyzing, like, images. I'm more of a visual type of guy. So I enjoyed literature and language. And at the start, I think it's really important to have an open mind, because especially when you're going into a whole new course where you understand it's going to be 2 whole years with the same teacher, and it's going to be a rigorous curriculum because you know it's the IB, it's important to keep an open mind, to always look for certain things that you find interesting. So an example would be French. I wasn't very fond of taking French. That's a nice word. But I really enjoyed when we would look at these cartoons, because I didn't think that they were too hard to analyze, but I also enjoyed, you know, working on it with my teacher and things like that. And so sticking with that, I was able to use them in my IA, or my oral, where it's an IB graded, I guess, assessment. And so doing that, I was able to do something I really enjoyed in French, even though I wasn't very excited for it. So I think keeping that open mind is also really important.
So now I'd really like to thank our panelists, who were just wonderful tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you to Kim and for moderating this panel this evening, and to all the panelists for giving so generously of your time and your story and experience. We tried to address a lot of misconceptions and to get deeper about really what our program is about. And something I was indeed not surprised, but I discovered again, I would say tonight, is when we asked you why TFS is right for you. I mean, we are talking about TFS being right for a very diverse range of personality, students, parents, and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, if another misconception is to think that, the school is only for one type of learner, for one type of person, one type of individual. It's not the case at all. We can see how diverse is the community, how diverse is the student body. Each one of them is, an individual with own aspiration, own skills, and, on the project to develop, and we are very proud to be able to make sure that each one of them has a pathway to success. So thank you so much for showing us this tonight.